Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Welcome to Subway Sports Talk. My name is Peter Kennedy. Let's talk about the Brooklyn Nets and the Boston Celtics in a game that was epic for a long time with a little bit of a lackluster ending, especially if you're rooting for those Brooklyn Nets. There's a lot to talk about, a lot to break down here, and it's not all pretty for the Brooklyn Nets. And right now, you're feeling real good if you're rooting for the Boston Celtics. And it was the perfect dichotomy of two teams with great talent, with great potential, one of which reached it and one of which did not. And that really goes to the team play and defensive intensity from Boston, while the Brooklyn Nets, even when they were hitting shots and leading for most of that game, were not playing a great team balanced style of offense. And they were relying on shot making and shot creation from individuals like Kevin Durant, who had a bad game. We'll get to it. Kyrie didn't even get up a lot of shots. We'll get to it. Goran Dragic came in and gave some good numbers, had some good minutes, some good possessions, but there was never a true sense of team effort, team offense that the Brooklyn Nets hit stride on into that fourth quarter. There were points there where Patty Mills hit a big three on an offensive rebound. Drummond was getting a bunch of offensive rebounds. Seth Curry hit a couple. Bruce Brown had a really nice game. You would think when saying all of that stuff that means the Brooklyn Nets would win. However, for the most part, it was offensive rebounds. It was broken possessions, getting these shots to these other guys. But in reality, the main effort, which turned into the main struggle, was this one-on-one attempted ISO ball style that Durant, not as much Kyrie, because he just didn't take that many shots and wasn't that involved in the fourth quarter, but Durant and some others were going after. It's not always sustainable. And when you play a team like the Boston Celtics, who have had one of the best defenses in the entire league this season, it's not the best way to attack. And you saw this in years past with Kevin Durant, where it wasn't necessary for him to do that all the time until it was time, until it was absolutely necessary and there was no other way to go. That was with Golden State, right? Motion offense, constant ball movement, constant off ball movement with Golden State. We saw it the other day when they demolished the Denver Nuggets, right? It's still the same thing in Golden State. Kevin Durant fit in seamlessly. And then when they needed that bucket getter, that moment where it's like, all right, the motion ain't cutting it right now. 101, go get one. KD was your man. And in reality, KD was that guy last year too, even though they came up slightly short against Milwaukee with a shorthanded roster and banged up roster. But over periods of time, that becomes more and more difficult to sustain, especially with length and strength of Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, Grant Williams, guys who can get into his chest a little bit, get into his lower half to make it more difficult. And clearly it was affecting him. Sending the doubles at the right time made him uncomfortable. And you don't see Kevin Durant have these types of games very often. And I've seen this narrative now go on Twitter and people online and whatever saying, "Oh, Kevin Durant always seems to get a pass for playing bad. He doesn't deserve that. No one deserves a pass. Why are all these other guys getting crapped on when they play bad? Not Kevin Durant." I'll say this: go back to Oklahoma City, and he got crapped on. Yes, he freaked out and criticized Oklahoma City's newspaper for putting out a snarky headline, "Mr. Unreliable," I believe it was. So he got crapped on back then. But since that point, since he left Oklahoma City, when has he been bad? Right? Can you think of many times he's been bad? I can't. I cannot. And now that he has been bad, basically for his standards and in general, for 2 games in a row, he deserves some criticism. And he looks a little bit weak, a little bit not 100% from an explosiveness standpoint, getting those shots up, getting to the rim, and a lot of shots are coming up just short. And what is that from? Is that from the extra effort that he's needed to put on himself to get this team to this point? Is it also from playing 45 minutes so often, especially down the latter part of the season? Is it from the Boston Celtics really putting together this intense defensive effort? I think it's both. I think it's all three, perhaps. So what's the answer? I hear a lot of Nets fans out here complaining about Steve Nash often. It's not something I typically agree with, but it's something that I hear. And I want to think about why people are saying this, and what I would say back to them is, who's the better option, right? You're going to get rid of Steve Nash right now. Who are you going to get now to to fill in that role? Obviously, it's not happening right now. It doesn't really matter. But the one thing people say about Steve Nash is his rotations. Tonight is a point where it's a little bit of a breaking point. They could have won that game. They were up the whole way, despite never really feeling like they hit a perfect stride. They were still leading that entire game, which is a testament to their talent and the individual performances they got from some guys. Never really hit stride. But the one thing I thought they could do when it comes to rotations that people have been complaining about a whole lot, and I'm not going to say it like Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge are going to completely change the outcome of a series, but sometimes it's not about what's going to happen across the entire series, but what can happen in one moment that trickles down to the other members of the team. Seeing is believing, and seeing how a little thing, an extra pass, an off-ball screen, movement can make a difference. The one thing you get from Marcus Aldridge and Blake Griffin is know-how. Blake can't move. Clearly, he's been out of the rotation. I'm not saying he's going to come in and hit 3 corner threes and an acrobatic layup. That's not what's going to happen. LaMarcus Aldridge was a decently important piece of this team for most of the year. Now he's out of the rotation. I'm not saying he's going to go 6 for 7 from the field and drop 14 points. But what can you do to help segue this team into playing the better style of basketball, the style of basketball that helped get the lead in certain points, and then the style of basketball that completely slipped away from them when it became a one-on-one battle for Kevin Durant, Kyrie, Goran Dragic, Bruce Brown, whoever had the ball in their hands, right? Blake, LaMarcus will make the right play. They'll move the ball. They make the right screens. They do what needs to be done. So I can hear the argument for putting those two guys in the game simply to mix it up. That's really all I was thinking about. What can they do to mix it up to get this Brooklyn Nets team playing with the right mindset? Because there was points of that game where I felt their mindset was off. And it wasn't that they weren't playing hard. It wasn't that they didn't care. It's the farthest thing from that. Stan Van Gundy was harping on it the entire game. Playing hard does not make up for fouls. When you play that hard and you're intense and you're trying to make the big play, that's great. But when you hack your guy and you get 2 free throws when it's a bad foul, that's not great. On the flip side, on offense, it wasn't that they weren't playing hard. It's not that Kevin Durant wasn't caring. He was almost caring too much, right? He needed to give it up, get it back in better spots, maybe catch off the pass once or twice instead of constantly getting the ball in the high post, elbow extended, wing, top of the key with shot clock expiring, trying to do something when he didn't have any advantage, where the double was coming right at the perfect time. Get some more of that veteran stuff, even for just 2 minutes. Then the guy, Nick Claxton, sees what LaMarcus Aldridge just pulled off there from the top of the key, right? Oh, how he moved the ball, how he cut after he passed and set the screen for the layup, right? Like those little things can add up. And I think what has to happen for the Brooklyn Nets is that team effort on the offensive end, everybody touching it a little bit more. And then when it's crunch time and it's time to make that last shot, yeah, okay, the ISO all you need to. But to get to that point, to sustain for 4 quarters, because really that's what happened. They hit the 7-minute mark in the fourth quarter and it slipped away. It fell apart. To get to that end point, to that 2-minute mark, that 1-minute mark, that 30-second mark, where it's time for KD to be KD, put the freaking nail in the coffin and end something, to get there, you're going to need the whole damn team. And it's really hard to keep sustained success when Boston's now able to time up those doubles perfectly, putting on a real effort, making you tired, making you hurt, making you work. And Kyrie, on the other hand, I'm not sure what was going on there. I don't want to jump to a conclusion that he didn't have the energy because of the fast. I know he ate. It was a big thing in the first quarter. He got some snacks to get the energy up. But it's weird to see Kyrie be a complete non-factor in a fourth quarter of a close game where he wasn't even touching the ball. So I'm not going to speculate, but it was bizarre. And what has to happen is everybody's got to touch it. Everybody's got to move off the ball. And then when it's time, crunch time, if you will, KD, do your thing. Kyrie, do your thing. But you need the whole squad to get to that point, clearly, because it's unsustainable for KD, Kyrie, Goran Dragic to go ISO ball and just hope that Drummond and Brown occasionally get offensive rebounds, or occasionally you find Bruce Brown cutting through the middle. It's not enough. It needs to be more pointed, if you will. On the Celtics front, man, I'm gonna keep this quick. Team's playing serious basketball right now. There's no quit in this team. There's no fear in this team, and it's really impressive to watch with Boston playing the opposite style of Brooklyn. Now, you get your Tatum one-on-ones, you get your Brown one-on-ones on occasion, but I was so impressed with the cutting. I was so impressed with Tatum, because he didn't have a great night tonight from shooting standpoint, but he constantly moved. He set screens. He had 10 assists tonight. Like it was a truly impressive team performance where, if you're telling me that Jason Tatum has 19 points and then the Nets would sign up for that, right? They said we probably won that game. It didn't happen like that because Horford hit shots. Horford made plays. Jaylen Brown was insane, especially on that stretch run in the fourth quarter. Peyton Pritchard with 8 points in the fourth quarter, all off cuts, all off back cut screens. Like this stuff was impressive. And when you have a team that can have their best player go 5 for 16 from the field and win, that's how you know you got the squad clicking on the right cylinder, on all cylinders, I think is how that phrase works. So I'm impressed by Boston. I'm just going to finish off by saying the series is far from over, because they say a series don't start until someone loses at home. So Boston's got to go take care of business in Brooklyn. I don't think it's going to be an easy task. I think Brooklyn comes back strong. And this is a series that you can't take your eyes off of, man. You can't take your eyes off it. It's great fun. I can't freaking wait. Shout out to Tatum, Brown, Pritchard, Horford, Smart. They all deserve their flowers tonight. And Brown specifically for putting the offense on his back a couple times, finishing on some tough late shot clock possessions. But truly, the ball movement, the effort, the energy, the defense, the trapping of KD won this one for Boston. Great win. Can't wait for game 3 back in Brooklyn. I ain't counting this one out, bro. I am not counting this series out. I think Brooklyn still makes this a series. I say it's going at least 6. I think it's going to go 7. And man, we got to see KD do something now, because 2 games in a row lackluster. Woo-wee. Tell you what, the birds will be chirping if he goes 0 for 3 in this series. He better step up back in Brooklyn, and Kyrie better not disappear in the fourth quarter. It's unlike him, and they can't win without both of those guys playing really well. But if they do, Boston will be scared. All right, yeah. Subway Sports Talk. Cheers.